1 in 5. What do you think that number refers to? Well, 1 in 5 of your customers has a disability, and we think that that's a stat worth paying attention to. Hello, my name's Rosie LePage, and in this talk, I'll be exploring the very compelling business case for digital accessibility. A quick word on myself. I work on the client services team here at Invika, where I help organizations across many different sectors to meet complex user and business needs through their digital products and services. I'm passionate about accessibility, and whilst I've been here at Invika, I've worked with our amazing clients on accessibility audits for existing sites and apps, training across lots of different teams on accessibility awareness and best practice, and recently some really interesting qualitative user research, specifically with those who have access needs, which we'll chat about a little bit more later. Now let's jump into my presentation, where we'll be looking at what is accessibility? A brief definition. This is the first talk of the day, and it's important not to assume that everyone has the same basic grounding in accessibility. Presumably, that's why some of you are here. Next, we'll look at how to argue the case for investment and change in your organisation, backed by new research from Invika. And lastly, we'll look at practical, real-world tips for starting and progressing your accessibility journey. Like, what things do I actually need to do? So let's kick off by considering what these three things have in common. On the screen, I'm showing a typewriter, a mobile phone displaying an SMS text message, and a fidget spinner. Well, the answer is that these are all examples of products and services that were designed for users with access needs, but actually ended up benefiting a far greater audience. And let me tell you a few quick stories about each of these, because they are fascinating. The modern typewriter was invented by an Italian, Pellegrino Turi, and it was invented as a disability aid. Turi needed a way to communicate with his blind lover, who was unable to write with pen and ink and didn't want the scribe to hear all their saucy correspondences. His QWERTY keyboard is still in use today, and it's on nearly every computer and almost every mobile phone that we all use. The SMS text message was invented as a communication aid for deaf people and went on to transform the mobile telecoms for all of us. And fidget spinners can be hugely beneficial to those with ADHD and autism, because by distracting the body, fidgeting can help to calm the mind. But anyone with kids at the moment will know that this took off in a massive way over the last few years, and hundreds of thousands of kids started to use them. So I wanted to start by highlighting this key point, that when you design for the less common use case, you actually improve usability for all of your users alike. The good news is that organizations are starting to understand the universal usability benefits of accessibility. Here at Invika, we recently conducted some primary research with heads of digital and UX professionals, and we learned that 52% of digital professionals say their biggest driver for doing accessibility is that it benefits everyone. That's hugely encouraging. And in today's environment of disruption and uncertainty, a focus on usability and frictionless customer experience has never been more important. Coronavirus, sorry for saying it, has shifted our lives online even more, and therefore accessibility is even more of a priority than it was before. The fact that most of you can join me today from your homes, I join you from Cornwall, is probably down to coronavirus, because we are actually now doing this event virtually. So what is accessibility? There are two things that you need to be aware of. Digital access needs can be permanent, they can be temporary, or they can be situational. So permanent, something like being born blind, or temporary can be just a broken arm. Situational could be a parent holding a baby in one arm and their phone in the other hand. So that's point one. Point two is that digital access needs are generally described under these three umbrellas in the middle of the screen: physical impairments, sensory impairments, and cognitive impairments. So physical could be something like a motor impairment, and users might need to navigate your website hands-free using assistive technology, such as dictation software. Sensory might be something like a visual or hearing impairment. The needs of these customers can vary massively. So for example, a blind user may use a keyboard and a screen reader. A partially sighted user may be looking to customize the experience that they have on your site. So just changing something like a text size. And then cognitive impairments include many things, including ADHD, dyspraxia, and other things to do with language processing. Oh, and remember, people sometimes have more than one of these things at the same time. So as we've just learnt, your users' individual access needs will impact how they interact with your digital products and services. Some people will need to use assistive technology, such as a screen reader. Others just need to be able to customize how they experience your site or app. So that's the basics of what accessibility is. Hopefully you're still all with me. What is the business case for accessibility? Hopefully you now understand how important it is, but how do you convince other people? First of all, we need to understand the scale. 22% of UK customers have disabilities. That's just over 1 in 5 of your customers, as we've already heard. What's important is, you might say, well, we don't have an old audience, so visual impairments won't affect us that much. But as we've already seen, it's a constantly changing consumer base with permanent, temporary, and situational needs that could be physical, sensory, or cognitive. So it's extremely unlikely that it doesn't affect you. You might look at someone like me, for example, and think because I'm a digital professional, I don't wear glasses, I don't appear to be in a wheelchair, and I have no obvious outward signs of disability, that I'm one of the other 4 out of 5 people. But that's not true. I have severe dyslexia, and that is an access need. It's estimated that up to 1 in 10 of all the people in the UK have some degree of dyslexia. I, as someone with dyslexia, struggle with large or even medium amounts of text. Numbers can flip themselves around on the screen, though not printed, and I struggle to learn new text systems just as fast as everybody else. But dyslexia also makes me really creative, strong memory for stories, and very empathetic. So we have to dispel the myth that all of these things are negative. Though hilariously, I wanted to find out some other benefits of dyslexia, so I did some Googling last week, and the first page I landed on was this one. I saw a wall of text and immediately clicked back to find an article with subtitles. I then stopped myself and realised that it was because it intimidated me. And I've never seen that as a disability or something unique to me. It's just what I do. Please take away from this that many people don't see themselves as different. It's just the way they do things. And it's our jobs as digital guardians to be more helpful. When breaking down the business case, there are 4 key drivers for digital accessibility. We have our financial reasons, our legal reasons, our usability reasons, and our moral reasons. So when it comes to finance and that side of the business case, you'll likely be talking to senior execs, numbers people. So I hit them with these numbers and I break it down into revenue, risk, and reward. So what's the potential revenue gain? Well, disabled community purchasing power is 274 billion and growing. And this community spend around £2 billion a month in the UK. Brands with poor accessibility are turning away a share of £420 million each week. So the question is, can your business afford to do that? So those were the potential revenue gains, but what about the risk? Well, $6.9 billion is lost to accessible commerce competitors, e-commerce competitors annually. 71% of disabled customers will click away from a website that they find difficult to use. And 48% of these customers will then make a purchase elsewhere, which means for some customers, you're just turning them off. They will no longer purchase, but for nearly 50% of them, they'll go to a direct competitor. That's a massive risk. What about the reward? Well, 82% of customers with access needs would spend more if a website were more accessible. They would increase their basket size just by being accessible. brands spend more time and money as well when accessibility is retrofitted rather than built in from the outset. So you're rewarded for doing it right the first time. Sources for all of these numbers are in our Great CX for All Accessibility report, and please feel free to use them. So those were our financial reasons, but there are very compelling legal reasons as well. Digital accessibility is a regulatory requirement, and so non-compliance comes with a very significant legal risk and obviously associated costs. Public sector websites created before September 2018 must comply with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG 2.1 AA standards, to the rest of us, by September 2020. That is not that far away. Here at Invika, we've started working with UK brands facing costly legal action in the US, including a leading high street retailer. So they are a UK founded and based company, but they're being sued and held to US standards because they trade there. In the US, lawsuits were filed at a rate of 1 per hour in 2019 under the Americans with Disability Act, commonly known as the ADA. ADA was also the basis for the high-profile lawsuit against international brand Domino's Pizza, which some of you may have heard about. Here are some other brands that you might not have heard about who've had legal cases brought against them. So Netflix, Target, H&M, Urban Outfitters, Coach, and one of my favourite artists ever, Queen Beyoncé herself. So legislation around this area is changing all the time, and international developments tend to set the precedent for UK law. What's more, legal action in the UK doesn't tend to make the headlines since it's usually settled outside court. So to minimise damage to brand reputation, people keep this out of the headlines. So there are likely to be far more than we actually hear about. It is my opinion that when it comes to the legal enforcement of accessibility, we should all be more Norwegian. Actually, I think there's probably quite a few reasons that we should all be more Norwegian. They do seem to have themselves pretty together, but their laws on accessibility are enforced the same way as not paying tax or punishment for a crime. So those were our legal reasons. And as we've already seen and heard, if you make the experience better for one, you make it better for all. And a great example of this is the work that we have been doing with SSE Energy. We've helped them redesign the online journeys for acquisition from scratch. We did accessibility audits, we had accessibility consultants, we trained the team, we used automated checkers, and we launched. And conversions went up 200% in some places. Happy days. We made changes for access needs that then benefited everyone. However, interestingly, we then ran a user testing project, a usability testing project, only with people who had access needs, and discovered that technical compliance is not the same as real usability for this audience. We spotted quite a few things that we needed to change, even though from an automated systems perspective, we had ticked all the boxes. Chris Golding is talking later today, and he's going to go into more detail about exactly what we learned. This is my additional point here, that technical compliance is not the same as real usability. So finally, we move on to our moral reasons for your business case. Digital products and services have the potential to hugely benefit people with digital access needs, allowing them to shop, communicate, learn, and participate in society in ways that may otherwise have been difficult or potentially even unavailable. But 49% of disabled people feel excluded from society, and that's terrible. And attitudes towards digital technology are playing a part. As part of its Big Hack survey, the charity Scope found that bad accessibility makes customers feel like they are the problem. And what springs to mind here is the well-known phrase, the customer is always right. So let's stop making them feel like they're wrong. So that was your brief business case. All the stats, the numbers, and the reasons you should hit the business with in order to secure your budget and help to promote change for your digital products and services. We've covered what accessibility is and how to put across our business case. So now we need to look at some practical next steps for you. So how should I approach accessibility? Well, Technical compliance forms the basis of most organisations' accessibility efforts, with a focus on meeting technical standards, guidelines, and legislation. This is a great starting point, but accessibility is more than just technical compliance for launch. Likewise, it can't be really viewed as just a one-off project. Accessibility is an ongoing effort and is about continually improving the customer experience. So organisations can achieve better products and better experience for all of their customers by embedding inclusive design practices and processes, and establishing a culture of digital inclusion that centres around open dialogue and practical action. Interestingly, our research suggests that accessibility awareness and understanding tends to reside within design teams. So therefore, empowering design and development teams to share knowledge and advocate accessibility across an organisation is key to adoption. Although, of course, accessibility happens as a group effort, and it also certainly requires senior level buy-in. Now let's look at some quick common mistakes which might form the basis of your quick wins as you go forward. So common accessibility problems include missing or incorrect uses of image alt text, meaning those who can't see images have no idea what you're selling, marketing, or explaining. Poor navigation and page structure makes screen readers and wayfinding unnecessarily difficult, or in some cases that I've seen, completely impossible. Poor formation of contact forms and contact options that don't suit your user base. Color contrast, as you can see on the screen, I've tried to show an example of this. Color contrast and design components, different colors on different backgrounds. I see this still far more than you should in this day and age. And not testing with real users with real access needs. According to our research, 65% of organisations are yet to do any accessibility testing with customers with access needs, which is the only way to ensure true accessibility. Before we go any further, please ask yourself quickly, have you ever used your own website or app with a screen reader? Or have you ever seen anybody else do it? If you haven't, it's a really good place to start. You'll see lots of examples of the things that I've just mentioned here, the common problems throughout the talks today. So 4 key points to end with, things that you can do immediately. So you need to understand accessibility as a concept. So accessibility training of your technical and non-technical staff is an effective way to improve understanding of accessibility guidelines and standards. They can be quite complex, and the diversity of access needs. It's key for helping different areas of the business to understand the need for organisational wide collaboration. We did this with SSE, so we trained their UAT, content development and user experience teams to try and make sure that our outputs are compliant from creation. That's what we were going for, which did show a massive improvement. Next, we need to understand how and where to make your digital products accessible. So an accessibility audit provides an ideal means of understanding what you need to do to meet technical compliance. Online tools can identify quick wins, which is good, but they don't provide the full picture. So make sure you bring on board an experienced specialist. Remedial code work may be required to deliver your audit findings. So you will have to do some practical work, but addressing a small number of the most impactful issues can improve your baseline quite dramatically. So that's a good place to start. Next, you need to establish ownership. And to do that, you need to appoint a product owner or product owners. Accessibility is everyone's responsibility, but that requires ownership. Your product owner is a vital bridge role between strategy and digital product teams. And they're in a prime position to take accountability for accessibility. So make accessibility a core responsibility within that role, with supporting KPIs which are aligned to your business goals. In order to be truly successful, there needs to be an aligned agreement within an organisation about the role of accessibility. And finally, you will need to gain senior buy-in. Invite key stakeholders to observe accessibility testing. Watching real users with digital access needs using your products is one of the best ways to gain internal buy-in. You'll hear from Chris Golding, UX manager at SSE Energy later today. And when we did this usability testing with people with visual and motor impairments, there was a real sense of enlightenment in the observation room. Most people have never witnessed someone with a screen reader reading their website content at 4 times the rate of general speech. And it is genuinely incredible. So today we've covered what accessibility is, how to build the business case for it, and how to get started at a high level. The rest of the talks today will give you a thorough understanding of the tools and processes you'll need to equip yourself with to get started and continue on your accessibility journey. Thank you.